Hello Mustangs, it's Mr. Dunn. We're going to watch a little video here and then take some notes. It's going to be your job to pay attention. You can pause it whenever you need to and take your notes so that we can learn a little bit more about economy. Remember the four institutions: gear. This is our E, or one of our two E's. So pay attention to the video, please. It's on something called GDP.
GDP is a term that's used a lot in the media, usually in relation to how much business your country is creating for the economy. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. It's an estimation of how well your country's economy is doing.
By the way,
so how exactly?
Don't need to write this down right now. You will write it down just a little bit in your notes.
Is Gross Domestic Product calculated? Different institutions all around the world that analyse different parts of the economy add these figures together to come up with the GDP figure. Private consumption. This is all the money that we ordinary people spend on goods and services. Gross investment. All the money that businesses invest in your country. Plus all the government spending that goes into health, education and other government industries and subsidies. Then the office will add up all of the exports, things that countries send out to other countries to make money, then minus the things that it buys in import.
Okay, just real quick, imports and exports. Remember, almost anything, any word you ever see with X in it, there could be some exceptions, but as a general rule, if it has X, that means out, something going out. And then M or in. This tends to be, they can be either one. Imports means stuff coming in. So, in general, for an economy, it's better to export more than you import. That means you're selling more stuff to others than you are having to buy stuff. So the more you can make at home, the better off you are. Now we'll finish the video.
Gross domestic product is only an estimate, as you can rarely tell with certainty everything that's going on in the country. But it's a good way of showing how your country's economy is doing. I hope that this video has helped you make sense.
Okay, he hopes the video has helped you make sense of GDP. But we're going to go out of this, and I'm going to take you to a page of some notes. And these are called economic indicators. So I want you to pause and write this down. Economic indicators. Don't worry about the of a nation's development part. You need to understand that's what we're talking about, but just write down economic indicators. So you should pause that, and I'm going to keep talking because when you're ready to restart, you'll listen. Now, we have first here life expectancy, the average length of a citizen's life. If you live in a country where people are dying young, the odds are they're not going to have a great economy. Dying young is usually because you have either things like diseases, lots of natural disasters, or perhaps you're involved in a war of some kind, and those things generally take a toll on an economy. They have a very bad impact. And so the economy of that country might be very low if the life expectancy of the people is very low. Literacy rate. Literacy just means the ability to read and write. We all know how important it is to read and write. And if you can read and write, and if most of the people in your country can read and write, then the odds are you've got a chance to build a good economy. That's just one factor. It's not the only thing, but it's an important thing. GDP, we just saw the video. The total value of goods and services produced in a country in a year. Remember, you need to write this down, but we did talk about goods and we talked about services and the difference. If a job is one where you, say, drive a truck or you work in a movie theater, if you're providing services to people, then you are in a service industry. If you're making things to sell to others, then you're making goods, and we call that manufacturing. The last one we see here is GDP per capita. Now this is an important distinction. Notice GDP is the same there and here. GDP, gross domestic product. The important difference is in this definition we have per capita. So look at the definition. It's going to be almost the same. Up to a point it will be the same. The total value of goods and services produced in a country in a year. The last part is most important, divided by the population of that nation. So, if I were to tell you, hey, everybody, I've got great news. I have 20 pieces of candy. Well, that could be wonderful, right? Because you could think, wow, Mr. Dunn's going to give me 20 pieces of candy. However, if I said, well, I've only got 20 pieces of candy for the whole class, then if your class, like first period, has 27 students, well, I don't have enough candy to go around. So, would you say I've got a lot of candy or not very much candy? Now, if I had 540 pieces of candy, that's 20 for everybody. That's a lot. So that would be 20 per capita. Capita is from the Latin word meaning head, the thing that sits on top of your body. We also talked about capital, and I said it comes from the word head. A column can have a capital at the top of it. This is all about being the head. So, if we're counting heads in a room, I go around kind of like duck, duck, goose, except I'm counting, then that's per capita. So I go around and I count everybody's, pat them on the head, and I count the number. There we go. We have 27 kids in class, or 22 kids in class. That's per capita. Now, GDP per capita can sound great if you have a lot of GDP, but if you have a very high population in your country, your GDP per capita can be very low. The United States happens to have a high GDP and a high GDP per capita, but you have to watch this when you're looking at a country. So, make sure you pause and write down all your definitions of the economic indicators of a nation's development. I'm going to pause myself. Okay, Mustangs, we're back. Got my coffee here. Now, notice here what you have in front of you, some notes. And by the way, if you can see me if you need a paper copy of these notes. If you can't copy them from this thing at home and you need a paper copy, you can take that in and I'll give it to you, but you have to bring it back to me. So you still have to copy them down. You still have to do the work. But anyway, we do have in our system, we're going to talk about different economic systems later, but we have something called free enterprise system in the United States. That means the government mostly lets our businesses be free to do what they want. That's a mostly thing. We'll explain that later. But here are some important definitions. We've talked about a few of them. Here we have service industry, the process of providing a service. So I talked to you about Walmart. I said when I go pay my money for my goods at Walmart, I don't get to take the clerk with me. The clerk is providing a service, and they're getting paid for that service. So I buy goods, I take goods with me, but services I don't. If I go to the doctor and the doctor, checks me out, I still have to pay him, even though I don't get to take the doctor home. So that's the difference between goods and services. Manufacturing, notice the parentheses, production. Whenever you see something in parentheses, it's explaining the word before it. Production, that's the act of producing. The process of making goods, often in factories. So that's what manufacturing is. Agriculture. Agriculture, farming, or livestock. So remember, there's a difference between farming and ranching. Ranching, I'm growing the animals to sell the animals, usually. Now, in the case of sheep, we'll kind of shave off the fur first so we can also sell the wool. But a lot of times ranching is done to sell the animals themselves. Farming, where you're mostly producing plants of some kind, although you do have dairy farms where you're producing milk from your cows. Egg farms, where you're producing eggs from your chickens. Okay? Now, wholesale we talked about, where a product is purchased in bulk, large amount. Remember, Walmart if I go in and buy a hoodie or Under Armour, I'm usually going to buy one, unless I've got lots and lots of money where I might buy 5 or 10. But in general, I'm going to buy 1 or 2. But Walmart will buy thousands from Under Armour. So Under Armour is the wholesaler, and they're selling in bulk. Me personally, I'm a consumer, so I buy retail. That takes us to our next definition. Retail sells goods to the consumers. That's the general public. That's you and me. So Walmart is the retailer. Under Armour is the wholesaler. We talked quite a bit about that the other day. We didn't talk about profit. A lot of us know what profit is, but we got to make sure that it's not just the money you make. If I have a lemonade stand and I sold 10 cups of lemonade for 50 cents each, that equals $5. But that's not my profit, because I have to deduct the cost of the lemons, and did I have to pay for the water? Now, if I was able to go get it out of my kitchen sink, no. But if I had to buy sugar and buy lemons and they cost me $1, then the $5 I made, I have to take away that $1 to calculate my profit. I have profit of $4. And scarcity, boy, that was a hard one because it looks like the word scary, or it looks like scar, but it's from the word scarce, which means there's not much around. If you're out in the desert, water is scarce. So anything where there's not enough of it, a lack of a product that's in demand, we call it scarce. Diamonds are something that are actually scarce. Even though there are plenty produced in the world, they're still pretty rare, and so people pay a lot of money for them. Okay, we're going to pause on this one. Let you take some notes. Okay, Mustangs, we're back. Coffee and hen. Traditional economy. Now we're going to talk about 4 types of economies. Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. 4 types of economies. Traditional economy, command economy, read the underlined words, socialism, and free enterprise. Okay, now, traditional economy, an economic system based on traditional trade passed down from generation to generation. A traditional economy is something you tend to see in countries that are not developed. So, you might be a farmer. You might make little things by hand that your family has done traditionally, and you learned that from the person in your family before you. Some of those things tend to be driven by gender. You might have the women making clothes in the family. The men are doing farming or hard work, or maybe making woodwork. That's a traditional economy. And then when you need something from a neighbor, you trade them something that you made. Cash is not even used often in traditional economies. Next, we go down to command economy. Command economy, an economic system in which the government makes all decisions about what to produce. Now, we used to call that communism. Communism has gotten a little bit complicated today. There are some communist countries that actually don't have a command economy anymore. But this used to be the type of economy you found in communism. The government would say everything. Nobody had any choice. We'll talk more about this later. Socialism, it's an economic system in which both the government and individuals play important roles about what to produce. Lots of time in socialism, the government will own large industries like electrical, energy, or maybe even the airline industry or transportation, like the train systems, telephones. We don't use that word anymore. The government will own all of these networks for communication and control them. In socialist countries, oftentimes the government owns health care and provides health care. So the doctor would be a government employee. Just like me as a teacher, I'm a government employee. Your parents don't have to pay me directly. They pay taxes, and then the government pays me. Lastly, we have free enterprise, an economic system in which the means of production are mostly privately owned and operated for a profit. So we're going to be cutting the video short here. Free enterprise. Remember, nothing is free. And even in the United States, which we call our system free enterprise, the government still has a say-so about what we do and how we do it, because they don't want us doing things in an unsafe manner just to make a profit. Okay, so take some notes, and we will give a new assignment shortly.